Hello to everyone out there. Welcome to the Logical NDE channel, where you will find accounts of near-death experiences submitted by our viewers. If this is your first time watching one of our videos, we'd like to let you know that we make content for everyone curious about death and the afterlife. If you like watching videos like this, please consider subscribing, giving us a like, and spreading the word about our channel. If you do that, you will get all of our upcoming publications, including this one. For our faithful listeners, it appears to be the ideal opportunity to unwind with a nice cup of coffee and enjoy today's episode as we begin discussing the near-death experience that an African-American man named Jeffrey Gravestone recently shared with us. Mr. Jeffrey Gravestone, a 40-year-old living in Los Angeles, experienced this incident in 2021. Here's how he states his story. In 2021, I was visiting my parents for the holidays, eating all that yummy food and living my best life. But all of a sudden, I started feeling sick, and trust me, I blamed it mostly on overeating food and not exercising enough. Anyways, I thought some sleep would fix it and went to bed early that night. But I woke up the following day feeling like I hadn't slept at all. I felt extremely fragile and started coughing a lot, and it felt really horrible. I was at my parents' house for only a few days, so I didn't have time to be sick, so I decided to visit the doctor. The doctor said that I had a cold and gave me some medicine to help me get better, but the following day, something even worse happened. It felt like every single drop of energy I had left had been drained from me, and I simply couldn't move anymore. My mom noticed how pale I had become and quickly called for an ambulance, but I wasn't in the right state of mind. The ambulance was moving, my mother was crying on my shoulder, and that was it. It blacked out, no sighs, no sirens, nothing. I only realized that something terrible had happened to me when I started to wake up in the hospital. The doctors told me that I had suffered a heart attack and that I was lucky to be alive. But my chest was still heavy, as if something was still pressing on it from the inside, and I was having trouble breathing correctly. My legs were like jelly, and I had no strength in my arms or legs. It was scary, and I didn't know what to do. I thought about the fact that someone close to me might lose his life because of me. Things got really bad. And after I was discharged from the hospital and returned home, things got even more strange. One night, while lying in bed, I suddenly woke up to find myself hovering above my body. I had lost all sense of time and had no idea how I got there or what I was seeing. As I looked down at myself, I realized with horror that my arms and legs were still hanging off the bed and that I was barely breathing. Then, something slowly began to take shape out of what used to be darkness. Dark shapes began forming into more distinct shapes and outlines until I finally saw a person standing in front of me. It was my mother. I looked at her and saw the fear in her eyes and the terror on her face as she tried to talk me into coming with her. But I wasn't there with her physically. I was hovering above my own body like a spirit watching over the wreckage of my life. So a few days after my heart attack, I began to experience some strange and vivid dreams about my mother and the accident while I was recovering at home. At first, they were difficult to distinguish from the waking world, but as the days passed, they became more precise and more vivid until they were almost indistinguishable from reality. Every night, I would wake up with a start after seeing a strange apparition appear in my room or my mother floating in the air in front of me. I tried my best to ignore the dreams and pretend that everything was still normal, but it quickly became impossible for me to sleep because I was plagued by terrible nightmares every night. I was so frightened by the dreams that I broke down one night and told my mom about them. She was very concerned and said to me that she had spoken to my doctor about it and that he didn't seem too worried about it. Even after a week and a half had passed since my heart attack, I was still unable to return to the activities that were a part of my normal routine. In point of fact, the only things I was able to get done were to spend the whole day lying in bed and either watching television or using the computer to browse the internet. I was unable to do anything else. One night, everything changed. I was tucked into bed after a long day of watching TV when all of a sudden, I awoke to find myself standing beside my bed, staring down at my body as it lay there motionless. But what terrified me was that there were people around me. Nurses and medical staff, to be exact. It felt like I was in some kind of clinic or hospital. I had no idea how I got there. I was just standing there. At first, I was terrified, but then I came to the conclusion that everything was fine, and now I'm just watching what's going on below, because that's what had been happening for quite a while. And let me tell you, it was pretty incredible, all things considered. I could see the nurses scurrying around in an effort to save my life, and I could even hear them coordinating their efforts with one another. It was the same day again, the same day when I had a heart attack. It was as if I had become one with the universe, because it seemed as though I was looking at everything from a different angle. Even though I was scared, had cold sweats, and was shaking with fear, I kept my composure and observed the situation from a distance to keep myself safe. After what seemed like an eternity, the nurse eventually came back to my body and checked my heart rate monitor before concluding that I had passed away. But I was there looking at myself. How could I be dead? When I woke up the next day, it was as if nothing had happened. I was still in my bed in my own room, and there were no nurses around me. Even though it has been almost a year since that night in the hospital, the memory of it still sends a shiver down my spine every time I think about it. And I have come to the conclusion that the day I suffered the heart attack, I died and came back to life, because that's exactly what the doctors told my parents. But that memory of being dead and looking at my own body remained in my mind, that kept showing in dreams and hallucinations. I don't know what it was or why it happened, but it must have been some kind of spiritual experience in which I reached a higher plane of existence for a fleeting moment and was able to view my life from a different perspective. I don't know what it was or why it happened. It was not exciting but horrifying and terrible, but I would not have missed that experience for anything in the world. My only regret is that I didn't tell anyone about it at the time because I didn't think it was anything special. I told my mother about my experience when I thought it was the right time, but she wasn't overly concerned because she said that I had probably just fallen asleep and dreamed about it, but now I've lived it, touching the plains of death and coming back alive to tell the tale. The information provided by Jeffrey Gravestone is definitely terrifying, but the way he puts it, we think we'd give anything to experience that as well. And that's all we have today. Drop down your thoughts on this new episode below. Please keep in mind to never engage in hate speech and to share only positive messages across all of our platforms. With that said, subscribe to our channel to stay tuned to the new updates and episodes we set out here. Turn on your notifications so you know whenever our new video comes out. Spread love and show our channel your support by sharing it. Until next time, God bless.